Welcome to my channel, and today we will have a look at my finished works in the series of Escape 2, books created by good wives and warriors. I have 4 of them: Shakespeare, Oz, Christmas, and Alice in Wonderland. They are definitely included in my list of favorite books, especially the first 3. They have everything I love in books. They have perfect size, they have big amount of details on each spread when I don't have to worry about doing something on the empty background, and they have perfect paper. The fourth one also extremely beautiful. I also wanted it, but the first 3 are in first edition, printed on slightly different paper, and the last one has paper which is a little bit different. You can see it even here. Paper in the first 3 books, it has cream or off-white color, and the last one is bright white. That's not the only difference, because the biggest difference is how they behave with water-based medium, with watercolor especially. Paper in first 3 books, it's perfect for watercolor. I do love to use it even without pencils. And unfortunately in the 4th book, when you apply watercolor, on the paper appear small strange dots, so pigment also doesn't spread as well as on this book. But nevertheless, I managed to find a way to do backgrounds here. But let's start from Escape to Shakespeare's World. It's one of my first books which I purchased in the very beginning of my coloring hobby, when I just discovered for myself Book Depository, that it's possible to order from Book Depository to Ukraine, and of course I purchased it immediately. I really love this idea that books are dedicated to them. Books, novels, so that's why I love this series. You know that I love to color and imagine that I am some kind of illustrator. That's why I love to color everything connected to fairy tales, stories, novels, and of course Shakespeare, Oz, Wonderland, they all included in this list. I started to color it when I didn't have Prismacolors, so on the first pages, and in the beginning I decided that maybe I will color it in order, but I managed to stay on this way only for first couple of pictures. So I started to color with very budget pencils. I think that here I used Faber-Castell Eco children pencils, but still I immediately realized that paper is absolutely gorgeous for all pencils. The next spread I did with soft pastel and Derwent color softs, the only professional set which I owned at that moment. The next one also is done with Derwent color softs. And in the same time I tested watercolors here, and I discovered that it's totally possible to color with watercolors, and that it's a big pleasure. Even for beginner, it was quite easy to use watercolor. You are able to put multiple layers, you are able to delete excessive pigment. So this paper, it was great. Well, after a couple of pages I realized that I'm not sure that I want to color it in order, but still I managed to color it quite frequently, and now I have not a bad collection of finished pictures here, comparing to my other books and comparing to the total size of my coloring book collection. I really want to do this spread. I don't know why I never have time for it. You know that I always love to color birds. Maybe I am slightly frightened to all these tiny details, but with harder pencils like polychromoses it will be quite easy. And I love that we have similar pictures but on light and dark background. But let's move to the finished pictures. I really love this dragon. I did it with Derwent color softs, and another good thing is that You know, the Derwent color soft, they are quite demanding to the paper quality. In many books, when paper doesn't have enough tools, the paper is too slicky, they don't layer, they don't want to cover paper thoroughly. But on this paper it's quite possible to use color softs, and I do love to use them. I can use them as a main medium, I can use them on top of watercolors, and here I used them first, and then on top I added pearlescent and shiny metal watercolors. I don't know if it's visible, but some parts of the cave and parts of the wings of the dragon, they are shiny. Also on the tail I have a little bit of gold. The only fun thing was that when I colored it, I didn't remember how dragon can be connected to Romeo and Juliet, and of course there is a part of the Romeo and Juliet, so we have this link where it was mentioned in the story, but definitely it was, for me it was difficult to remember that he was even mentioned in Romeo and Juliet. That's one of my recent works. I'm really proud of it, because in the beginning it was nothing interesting for me. I never paid attention to this page, but then I looked at it and I realized that I can do quite dramatic image here. I wanted to play on this contrast, on the heart in the center, and also the lace. Maybe it represents Juliet wedding dress, her veil, or maybe her wedding cake. Anyway, we have a couple of tender parts, these roses and lace, surrounded by steel, by armor, all those metal part. So I decided to play on this contrast, and I also wanted to do a very dramatic background. That's why I used graphite, I used this red watercolor paint, wanting to create a reminder of the blood, so that's why I have splash of this red paint here. And it was really very interesting to do, because I had a very clear idea which colors I want to do, to use, which impression I want to create, and I just needed to find in my big collection of art supplies which media will help me to create this impression. Here I want to do a lot of spreads, and as I say, I'm very happy that I will be able to color them with watercolors. They are great. This one I believe that I did with Derwent color softs, also with soft pastel, and it was one of my first attempts to use stencils. I still love this idea when we have almost black and white main image and only inside the circles we have colors. I still think that it's quite creative. This spread I did using Derwent ink tens first, background, some of the details, but then I switched to Derwent color soft. I definitely can recognize them here, and other regular pencils. And again I added some gold. On the unicorn I added copper and bronze, tiny dots with acrylic paints. For me, from the beginning it looked like medieval tapestry, and that's the impression I wanted to maintain. That's why I selected many colors traditional for tapestries. This rich wine red, a lot of blue, a lot of gold, all those colors which we can find on medieval carpets and tapestries. It was complicated, especially the unicorn. Background is very detailed. Unicorn is without any details on the body, so that was a little bit tricky to color, but I do love the final image. I want to color all these double spreads. I hope that step by step I will do it. The next page which I did this month, it's from Hamlet, and this time again in the beginning page looked quite simple, but I simply wanted to use something unusual, not those pencils which I used every day. So for the background I used there went graphite. I used also water-soluble pencils, which from the set which I don't use quite often. I'm not very good at using water-soluble pencils for the background. They always create stain which I don't like, but here I think that somehow it doesn't spoil the whole idea. Then on top of this background I intensified shadows with regular pencils, and I really enjoyed doing gold. This time I used mostly Faber-Castell polychromes and other pencils which work absolutely magical on this paper. I'm quite happy that here we have various spreads, botanical elements, simplified people, a lot of landscapes which I really love to color, and unusual subjects like this planets. In the beginning, when I had very limited amount of books, it was very helpful. When I participated in some coloring, when we had to color a picture on one theme, I always was able to find something here. I didn't have any Halloween pictures, so I found one here. I didn't have any historical pictures about Egypt, and I found here, so it was very helpful. This spread I did completely with watercolors. Apart from this fish here, I used color softs. Yes, color softs again. Everything else was made with watercolors, and I am quite proud. You know that my watercolor skills, they are quite limited. Mostly I use watercolor as underpaint, and then I work on contrast and on details using only pencils, but here I managed to do the whole spread, the whole Venice landscape with watercolors. I believe that this mermaid I colored 2 years ago for the mermaid. Probably background was made with Neocolor crayons, a little bit here, and the rest with Prismacolors. I love her tail. I love that it looks pearlescent and shiny, that it has those lavender, violet and golden colors, so I think that quite nice, especially in contrast to the background. Here I tested one of my sets of water-soluble pencils. It was very limited, only 6 colors, made by Faber-Castell, their watercolor series, and I tested if it's possible to color with only 6 colors. I wasn't very successful, and apart from the main image, I never found time to finish this page. Oh, this one, it's another one of pictures which I made when I had to color something for Halloween, but when I didn't have any special Halloween books. So I selected this gloomy and macabre picture with insects. I'm not a big fan of insects, but this one, it was interesting to do because background I did with granulating watercolors. When you use just one paint, and by itself it creates this color gradients from Bordeaux, claret, dark, almost black colors, pink in some of the areas. So that's why I wanted to test it here. And on top of it I did this lines using silver watercolors. So it's shiny and it doesn't look very gloomy and macabre when I look at it. But to color insects it wasn't very pleasurable. At least the spider web, it looks quite festive here. Each Christmas time I want to do this spread, but it's so frightening with so many details, but it's so beautiful. Another part of the book which I always loved, it's this one. We start here in Macbeth, and again I want to do everything here. Beautiful spread. Here I did just one small detail for my Halloween video, how to color tombs. And I never finished it, but I am sure that one day I will do it. Another one of my quite early spread. I think that I already owned Prismacolors, but maybe here I used watercolors and some of my Kohinoor Mondeluz pencils. A lot of watercolor for the background, some acrylic paint for the smoke, and details with pencils. I do love both pages here. The left page I finished several years, maybe 4 years ago, and it's mostly Derwent color source, especially on the background. And the right side I finished a couple of days ago. Now the whole spread is finished and I'm absolutely happy. Let's move. This one I hadn't finished. I believe that I did it with Prismacolors. I don't know why I know that I realized that it had to be double page spread, and that's why I was slightly discouraged because I was limited in time. That's why I decided that maybe I will finish it one day later. Instead I did this Egyptian page. Also one of my quite old works with black acrylic background. Let's move. What else we have here? I think that probably just one page here where I tested watercolors. And now we can move to Escape to Oz. When I colored on the video one of the pictures in this book, I already told my story about this book. Escape to Oz, Wizard of Oz, was one of my favorite books in the childhood, but the fun thing is that actually what I read in my childhood, it wasn't exactly this story by Frank Oz. We had a very similar book copied by a Russian writer Volkov, and he used this first book as a base of his story. He changed a couple of details, he changed names of the main characters, but after that he also yes, it was a copyright infringement, but you know, during Soviet times, who cared in Soviet Union about copyrights and about American artists and writers. But he also created a lot of books after this one, and those were based on his own plots. And that was the series which I fall in love in my childhood. I had beautiful books with beautiful pictures, but the main story was similar. The main characters, apart from names, were similar. So that's why now I love to color Oz books. Now let's have a look at, and it's another book where I tried to color in order, and again I managed to do only a couple of first pictures. Here I didn't finish even the title page, but I did first couple of spreads. Again, a lot of watercolors, very helpful for all the area of the grass, all the area of the sky, and only the Emerald City I did with Prismacolors. Another almost watercolor spread here. I wasn't very good at doing wooden details here, so I'm not completely happy. Somehow brown looks a little bit muted and faded. That's why it's not one of my favorite pages. But maybe in the old Texas house where family lives, so maybe indeed the wood and wallpaper, they had slightly faded look, so maybe it's acceptable. Now let's move. Where is my next? Here I stopped to color for some time because I didn't know how to proceed. This one I definitely don't like, so if I want to finish it, I definitely will be covering the background. I experimented here with some of the water-soluble pencils, maybe even with Inktense, and I don't like this background. This one I simply didn't finish, but I do love how the yellow brick road looks with a lot of small color accents. And the next spread is this one. Again, almost everything done with watercolors, only on the scarecrow I used pencils, maybe on some of the corn and mice, but I really enjoy to work here with watercolors. When in quite limited amount of time you can get very quickly finished result because of the quicker coloring with watercolors, because of the size of the book. As usual, I had to put some bookmarks, but I never do it, so sorry guys. Here I have lesser amount of finished pictures, but I still love them. This spread I did with acrylic, dark green acrylic background. I think that it was nice and quick way to cover the background, and I think that this dark emerald color really matches the whole spread. The rest I did with Prismacolors. Coloring is available on my YouTube. I did this one, and after probably almost the whole year I finished the left page, trying to maintain the same colors. Sometimes it's very helpful when you have your own coloring video, so you can check which colors you used for the frame, for the leaves, for the golden elements, for the emeralds, and you can maintain the same color palette. The only character I don't like is the dog. It's not very beautifully depicted in this book, so I like their character, but I don't like how it looks in this book. Not very easy to color. Another page where I tested my granulating watercolors. This time I used very famous watercolor by Daniel Smith, and with just one paint you can get all those lavender, gray, lilac, slightly bluish tints, depending from the amount of pigment and water you applied here. So nice and quick background, and really matching the whole spirit of this page. I always loved to color crows. I do love to color black feathers, adding small colorful accents with violet, with blue on their feathers, trying to show how shiny they are. So I love this spread. And the next series of finished works I have in the end of the story. When I started to color this one, I realized that it was one of the differences between story which I read in my childhood and the real Wizard of Oz story, because we didn't have this base of small China people in our story, so I didn't understand what exactly I was coloring here, but nevertheless it was interesting to do because I used Derwent ink tents for the spread. Only the leather and wooden details was made with regular pencils, but the central part with this muted blue, muted pink and violet, they were made with a limited amount of ink tents. If you are familiar with ink tents palette, you can find all those dusky purple colors. It's easy to find them here. Then I have this spread, another one where watercolor was extremely helpful for this dark night, dark blue background to create beautiful contrast to the spider and all the animals. Another spread, a lot of watercolors also, but this time I also used Sucolor pencils. Even budget pencils behave really well on this paper, so I'm quite happy that at least in the end of the book I have finished spread. If I didn't manage to color it in order and to do the title page, at least in the end I have this nice spread. Now let's move to Escape to Christmas. In the beginning I didn't purchase this book together with the two first ones because honestly the Dickens story which was used as a base for this book isn't my favorite. You know, it's not very uh, festive Christmas story, so I read it just one time. I appreciate that it has a good idea behind the book, but it's not the funniest Christmas reading. So I was afraid that in the book also there will be a lot of such things. But then I realized that I do love all the Victorian styles details, and when I watched flip through, I realized that I do want this book. And now I appreciate all those connections to the Dickens story. One of the pages I always want to do was this one. Maybe this Christmas I will find time and I will do this Christmas page. I hadn't decided yet what to do with the background. Do I just want to do the wreath or to add something on the background? And maybe that's one of the problems, one of the reasons why I hadn't started it yet. I color it again with the same color combo with watercolors and pencils on many pages, including this one. Here I appreciated this black background. It was quite nice to add some shiny watercolors here. So my sky and Christmas sky above the tiny village, they all are very shiny because of the Kolorowanka perlish and watercolors. I also slightly changed shapes of the clouds. They now look more realistic, less childish, and I used Derwent Inktense and Derwent Graphitint here for the house. Because of the muted colors of the Inktense and Graphitints, it looks old and quite in Victorian time style. I think that this one I did last year, and we have a watercolor background. First regular watercolors in lighter and darker blue, and then on top of it I spreaded a lot of silver pearl and golden pearl watercolors. White pencil, which works really well on top of watercolor, helped me to create this halo around the candle. And I do love this difference in textures, slightly shiny and waxy here, and matte basic watercolor. Let's move. Here I have spread where I totally love the left side. It was quite nice to do it. I am glad that I selected a lot of pastel colors from Prismacolor set for the inner part of the snow globe. I believe that it's Christmas village, maybe on morning after Christmas, so everything is so tender, gentle, very delicate colors on the sky. I wasn't very happy with all those dots on the background. For the snow it was too much, but I managed to add a little bit of color accents here, like a halo around the snow globe and couple of stars, so now I think the background is not so bad. The gold I did with polychromos, and again, if you're interested, these pictures, they all are on my YouTube channel. And on the right side, I don't know what to say. I did it somewhere in the end of the Christmas season, so I was tired of traditional Christmas colors like wine red, like pine or Prussian greens, which we usually use. And somehow I grabbed my set of acrylic gouache, and one of the least used colors was this Viridian green, and somehow I decided that I can test it if it's possible to use it somewhere. I somehow thought that blue and Viridian will look good. Well, I do think that the reindeer and unusual garland around him, they do look nice together, but I still cringe a little bit from the color of the background. It's not bad, it's simply unusual. Again, maybe on a wine red it would be better, but even on this color I still love the main image. Or it was one of the long colorings because of the many details here. I remember that to do the reindeer it was relatively easy, even if the fur of the reindeer it's not the easiest thing to color because it's a mix of beige, light gray, light brown color. But I managed to do it. But then we had so many mixed details on the background. I tried to divide them into several parts. All the greens details. Then what can I color in red? What can I color with blue? And in such way, step by step, adding colors, I managed to do this spread. We have similar spreads in all the books by Escape to, like we had that unicorn. In other book we have rabbit in Wonderland, so similar in the style and composition, and I already managed to color a couple of such spreads. Well, let's move. Some of the pictures here are slightly too simplified for my taste. You know that I'm not a big fan of coloring repeating elements, but fortunately here I still have so many nicely and beautifully detailed pictures. Another theme which I always appreciate in Christmas books is everything connected to the song 12 Days of Christmas. If you follow my channel, you know that I even stitched Christmas ornaments dedicated to this song, and of course when I found something connected to this song in this book, because here we have bears, we have turtle doves, and I decided that of course I want to color it. Another page which reminded me about tapestries, that's why I selected such a color for the background, but I think that it complemented the main colors for the birds and for the pair. It was one of the experiments with Derwent color softs, so everything here made with these pencils. Not every time it was easy because I didn't like greens from color soft set, so I tried to avoid using them here, so even the leaves have quite unusual colors, but in the end I think that I love this unusual spread and maybe an unusual page, and maybe one day I will finish the whole spread. I was thinking about using reverse colors, what I used for the background to use on the bird and what I used on the bird to use for the surrounding background, but I realized that maybe it's too limited amount of colors, so I need to find another color idea here. Another spread connected to the 12 Days of Christmas song. So here we have swans, and I believe that here I used neon colors for the background and then Prismacolor pencils for the birds, for the swans. And I think probably watercolor for the sky. I started my coloring in this book with this bakery page, one of the most beautiful. Again, coloring is available on my channel. Almost everything done with watercolors. I did watercolor layer first, and then for the details inside of the shop window on the wreath I added a little bit of pencil. I always liked here all pictures with sweets, so maybe one day I will color them. Another Christmas page with unusual colors. In the beginning I wasn't sure which color to use for the background, and I thought that maybe it's a little bit strange to use pink for the Christmas page, but in the end I think that this not very bright, very delicate pink looks quite nice together with traditional Christmas red, Christmas green and golden colors. I also added golden watercolor, so some parts are also quite shiny. Dots and ribbons here. Next, I have one unfinished page and page which I definitely want to color. Now finally let's move to my final book which I received for the previous Christmas. It was a gift and I'm really very grateful. Somehow I decided that I will start to color it not from the first but from the last page. And here I tested Arteza and Black Widow Monarch pencils. And that's where I discovered that probably watercolors aren't the best medium for this page. Here I managed to do watercolor background because it's a very light. No, here I used gouache. Yeah, here there wasn't any problems because I used gouache around main images done with Arteza. But on the next spread I discovered that watercolor creates dots and stains, so I had to mask it, splashing a little bit of paint on top of it and masking the areas where I didn't like those dots. But I think that I managed to save the spread. I do love that background is quite colorful. It helps to balance a left side and a right side. The right side is detailed with various colors. The left side has only those cards, so colors are limited, but because of the background everything looks quite well balanced. And then here I tested my set of Sucolor pencils. I just received them, so I was curious how to use them, and that's where I started to love them a lot. Many cute animals, fun animals. I think that my favorite here is the dove and the rabbit. Well, what else I have here? The rest, no, I also have this rabbit again where I experimented with the background done with Derwent graphite. I think that you can recognize their muted and dark colors everywhere, and on top of it I added pearlescent red and golden watercolor, so it's small details in the corners. In contrast, the rabbit is quite shiny with the waxy pencils. And the rest of the pictures I have in the beginning of the book. When I realized that I can't use watercolors, I started to use my set of Arteza gouache, and it was a good hint finally to start using my set of gouache. And I think that gouache background also is very beautiful. I don't use yellow as a background color quite often, but here with all the pink, lavender and lilac, I think that it created quite nice color combo. Another page where I am extremely proud of the background is this one with Alice falling down the rabbit hole. I did acrylic background first with a regular gouache, which provides matte background. Then on top of it I used pearlescent gouache, and I deliberately did these vertical brush strokes to increase impression of falling Alice. And on top of it I even spreaded some gold and pearlescent watercolor, so it's complicated, but I do love the background. And Alice was made probably with Prismacolors. I think yes. Again, it's on my YouTube channel, so if you want to color something with me, you will easily find it in Escape to playlist. That was my series of Escape to books, and even if I sometimes forget about them for months or two, I'm always happy to return to them, and I hope that in December I will do several pictures in Escape to, and then from January I will move probably to Wonderland or to Oz. I definitely recommend these books. If you have books from the first edition, you are extremely lucky, but even the second edition is very good because of the beautiful pictures. Paper is good for all the pencil brands. The only problem is watercolor, but you can use acrylic or gouache. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that you will also watch my color along videos in these books, and I will see you very soon.